Folks for OS Reviews are watching our video comparison between the TicWatch 2 and the Xiaomi Amazfit Pace. These are both smartwatches that are running on a heavily modified version of Android OS. In terms of hardware specifications, they're also quite similar. They both have dual-core processors, 512 megabytes of RAM, and 4 gigs of built-in flash storage. And they're both budget and not really super mainstream smartwatches that you can pick up right now for under 200 and under 100 respectively. So the original price of the Pace, was closer to 200, but the pricing has dropped over the past few weeks. So right now you can find it for again around 100 or so, which again is going to be cheaper than the TicWatch 2. With that being said, the TicWatch 2 is the one that has a wider array of features. It has a better voice recognition system. It is closer to what we think of as a real smartwatch, something like the Apple Watch, something like Android Wear, whereas the Pace is a bit more watered down, and that's a purposeful move by Xiaomi because they are marketing this more as a sports smartwatch. However, the OLED screen has vibrant colors, deep contrast, and it's a joy to use indoors as well as when you have a little bit less glare and light. What's interesting about both of these watches is after a few seconds of inactivity, they both have always-on displays. So you don't have to tap on the crown keys, you don't have to use a gesture to wake it up. Simply glance at it and it's always on. For the TicWatch, to conserve on battery, it goes into a simplified interface that's in monochrome black and white, because with OLED screens, the technology exists so that it's only draining power when it's showing color and when it's having significant movement with the pixels. So in this mode, it's actually able to extend the battery life considerably. So again, a very interesting use scenario on both, which I appreciate. All right, so let's start with the design of both of these watches. Very similar. You can see that the Pace does have a smaller display size, and it also, at least in my opinion, doesn't look as futuristic, and that's because it has larger bezels, and there's also a kind of a slice that's cut off at the bottom, like the first generation Moto 360. So as a result, it's a little chunkier, it's a little bit thicker, and it does feel a little bit less sleek on your wrist. But overall, they're both beautiful pieces of hardware. And the Amazfit, which uses ceramic in addition to glass and polycarbonate plastic, has great material choice overall, especially considering its price. The TicWatch is a lot more understated. It also features kind of this tempered glass screen that kind of floats on the top that gives you the impression of having this almost edgeless technology where the display kind of bleeds out, which I think is very cool. The build here is predominantly made out of plastic with some aluminum accents here and there, and the back here also features kind of the ceramic plating. So that is very similar as far as the overall kind of material choice, and overall weight is similar as well. Both of these bands can be swapped out for other designs if you want to. Both of them do feature optical heart rate sensing. Both of them will come with their own kind of charging cradles, whereas the Pace uses contact pins, the TicWatch uses the Qi wireless standard, which is a bit more convenient in my opinion. Speaking of battery life, I have to say that because of the ePaper's display, the Pace still edges out the TicWatch. So if you are looking for the smartwatch with the longest battery performance, then perhaps this one will still be your best bet. It will last you for roughly a week on a single charge, a week and a half, compared to the TicWatch, which will last you for about 2 to 3 days. There is an extreme power saving mode, which you can access, and you can go into the settings, and that will simplify the entire overall system, but and also turns off the display when you're not using it. However, if you have the power reserve mode turned on, it will last you for about 5 days to a week before you need to recharge it. So there is a way to boost the battery technically, but you lose a lot of the functionality. All right, so talking about some of the other kind of hardware elements, moving more into the software next, there are a few differentiating factors. For one, the Amazfit Pace has a GPS chipset, and it's one of its main selling points. Using this chipset, it can be disconnected from the phone and still track your location as you're doing runs and jogs outdoors, as a part of its really fitness and sports-focused design. There's also a fitness coach on board that will tell you how to train harder in 30 days, and you can set the difficulty level level, which is pretty cool. The TicWatch Wear TicWatch is a much more geared for the average consumer, like the Apple Watch, and that means it has even its own app store. You can download some games and productivity tools, and it's a lot more geared at the ordinary consumer as opposed to these sports enthusiasts. Yes, there will be also fitness specific apps that you can download, but you have to do that yourself. But one thing that it does have is the addition of a touch sensor or a tickle strip. That is a feature that is absolutely unique to the TicWatch, and it makes it slightly easier to navigate. So for things like scrolling through lists, you don't have to obstruct the display, and it actually makes for a pretty easy navigational experience that is fairly lucid and responsive. Otherwise, both of these watches feature the standard Wi-Fi, the standard Bluetooth. So let's talk about the menu and the overall software design next. So of course we have the main kind of watch screen, and on both of these watches we can long hold on the watch faces to change the design. You can see that there is a wide catalog and selection of watch faces to pick from both of these devices. And there is a continuous array that you can download even more from the companion app. So no problems at all as far as finding a style that fits you. Some are colorful, some are more athletic, some of them show more information, but all of them, I think, in my opinion at least, looks fairly attractive. Now, one thing I don't really like about the Pace is its crown key. It is very small and it's at a very awkward angle, so hitting this can be a challenge at times, especially if you're outdoors and running, versus the crown key on the TicWatch, which is a bit more prominent. It's more tactile and responsive. So next we can swipe over to the right, and you can see that whereas on the TicWatch we have a continuous kind of a page of all our apps, on the Pace it's a bit more kind of locked down in terms of what you can access. There's a weather forecast page, and the next page over is your fitness data, then your heart rate, then your music, your alarm, compass, stopwatch, sleep. So it seems to dissipate each of the individual apps onto a separate panel, and there's really no way to download, again, additional apps. So you have this scrolling menu interface. The only list that appears if I scroll to the left, and from here I can, again, choose a specific sport to have a more accurate reading when performing that activity. But again, there's no way to kind of scroll through all of my apps at once. So that is a difference. It relies on widgets and pages that are all spread out as opposed to a list-based system. So again, a bit more boggled down or locked down compared to something like this, which reminds me more of a smartphone or an Android phone, but obviously in a watch form factor. On the TicWatch, and swiping to the right here, doesn't give me a shortcut of my sports activities that I can perform. It gives me the voice search AI assistant. It's similar to Siri or Cortana, and it actually works really well. You simply have to speak into the microphones, which are noise canceling, and it will automatically pull up results from the internet. It's actually really good. You can even ask it things like jokes, setting an alarm, setting up a notification, calling someone, so it's gonna call that number on your phone, and it works basically 99% of the time that I tested it out. So it is one of the most impressive things. It's almost like having, again, Siri or even Alexa on your wrist, and it works surprisingly well, even when the phone is disconnected, since it has Wi-Fi. There is no voice search capabilities on the Pace, so again, it really is sports emphasized without any of the other kind of voice search, internet search capabilities. So that is, a really interesting point, that both of these watches have the ability to connect to the internet, but at the end of the day, they don't actually have full-blown web browsers. They don't offer you the capability to watch a YouTube video. Perhaps that is a smart move compared to just putting Android on your wrist, because these are the main things that people will actually use on a smaller screen. It's been more optimized for the regular consumer. But that is something to keep in mind, because you think Wi-Fi, you think they might be standalone devices completely, but that's not completely the case. You still need to have a companion phone. With the TicWatch, after you do a voice search, it can tell you recommended web pages, but to fully open up the web page, you have to send it over to your phone by tapping on it once, and it's going to send the page over seamlessly. So again, some differences in terms of how these features are laid out. When it comes to fitness performance, which is going to be the most similar aspect of all of these, both of these two, such as their heart rate tracking abilities or fitness in terms of how many steps you've walked, I find them overall to be fairly good as well as consistent. So this one gives me a circular interface. It reaches the full circle when I've gotten 100% of my daily activity that I've set up. It tells me my steps, distance, calories burned. It also tells me my active hours, how many hours I've slept, and I can manually tap on it to give me a heart rate reading. The interface on both I feel like is fairly easy to see. This one that says daily overview is a bit more simple, but really similar in terms of how it also has a ring that reaches 100 when you have completed your daily goal. And in terms of heart rate data, they are basically the same. They have within 1 to 2 beats per minute different, but all in all very similar tracking capabilities. When it comes to the pedometer, both very accurate. They were within the same order of magnitude when compared to Misfits and a few Garmin trackers. Again, very similar in terms of data and performance. So, take it with a grain of salt. It's not going to replace, going to a doctor. It's not going to be the most accurate thing in the world, but it works, and it works generally very well on both. When it comes to the overall day-to-day use, they're all, again, waterproof, so you can take them for a shower, you can take them while you go to the beach while going swimming, and they will both survive. That's been our closer comparison between the TicWatch 2 and the Amazfit Pace. Even though they have very similar hardware specifications, at the end, their target demographics are quite different. Even though at this price of only about $100, it seems like the Pace is a steal, you have to remember that it's still quite geared towards sports enthusiasts with its array of applications that you'll be using it for are really catered towards people who really want specific and precise kind of sports activity data. And although it does a good job of giving you notifications as well, it's really not quite as centered on the regular smartwatch things, such as doing good voice searches because it doesn't have a microphone. It doesn't have the ability to pull up a dialer because it doesn't support the ability to use it as kind of a phone companion. Furthermore, there isn't a specific app store like you'll find on the TicWatch that you can use to download future games and apps like workout apps, games, things like that. So I would still kind of recommend the TicWatch 2 just because I think that it's more fully featured and it just feels, again, a bit more polished and elegant both from the design and the software. It's more of a traditional smartwatch experience which will appeal to a wider array of audience. However, if you are a sports enthusiast, then the Pace is absolutely the best way to go just because it has longer battery life and it has much more kind of sports-oriented use cases built right on in. But if you are a regular consumer and you're ready to kind of play around with your own apps and you're ready to install the things that you need, then the TicWatch, again, really is the way to go just because it can do more, but obviously at the expense of slightly shorter battery performance. So anyways, guys, you can check out more details. These two watches, again, have virtually the same hardware specs in terms of memory, in terms of processing power, but in the end they are very different ecosystems and products designed at very different people, so make sure that you keep that in mind. Thanks for watching this video here at OS Reviews. This was a closer comparison between the TicWatch 2 and the Amazfit Pace.